Hi, I'm Paul Drake. This is the second of our ExperTEES sessions where I'm excited to be joined by Simon from CPI and Andrew from Greenway. Today we'll be discussing the Internet of Things, IoT 4.0. So I'm just going to pick up my questions, but before we start, I'd like the panel to introduce themselves. So over to you, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Hancock from Greenway Pest Management. I've been working alongside Sapir for a year and a half now, maybe.
Maybe two.
Been getting on really well. They put me in touch with Simon and the guys from CPI because I've got some ideas of what I want to do with my business with regards to the Internet of Things. And I think CPI have got some really good tools to help.
Hi, and I'm Simon Johnson. I'm Chief Technologist in the Electronics Unit at CPI. So CPI is a technology support organisation, part of the Catapult network in the UK. And we work with companies to support them in adopting new technologies. And we were put in touch through Sapir with Greenway to help them understand how they might build a novel new device for catching rodents, which is an interesting application for sure. Really pleased to be here.
So let's start with definitions then. In layman's terms, what's the definition of the Internet of Things?
I'd say the Internet of Things is the next step of the internet. So the internet at first was people talking to each other, and the Internet of Things is getting things to talk to us and things to talk to things, and accumulating like data essentially, and using that data to make decisions without our input to make our lives easier.
Did you get that definition off the internet?
Yes, I did get that definition. Yes, I did.
That's the one I had written down here. I knew it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it very much is about remote data. I always think it's about data sources of some sort. You know, you're measuring something, you're detecting something, and then you've got to get that information, that data somewhere else. And it's that sort of remote connectivity that I think is a really core bit of IoT. Certainly all the applications you see are like that, aren't they? It's monitoring what's going on in the field so you can grow your crops better, or checking for bugs and not having to go around and do all of that yourself. So, yeah.
The Internet of Things has transformed the way we do things, and it's changed an awful lot. How do you see it changing over the past 3 decades from where we were to where we are now with Tesla's wearable devices, and the most obvious thing is mobile phones? What's your take on that, how it's developed over the past 3 decades?
I think we're still like scratching the surface personally on what it can be capable of. I think it's quite fractured and bitty at the minute. I think the best potential would be the more interconnectivity you get, the more decisions can be made. At the minute, I think there's individual applications, but it's all very much like fragmented. I don't think you'll actually know what it can be used for. It's like, imagine a mobile phone like a Nokia brick phone, 2310, and someone had like a modern iPhone. Like, it's still a phone, but like what it can do is that much more. So I think time will tell.
I think it's absolutely right that we don't know, to be honest. Yeah. And if you think about Tim Berners-Lee, when he came up with the idea of the original concept for the internet, which was this universal resource locator, he didn't conceive of all the things that we now do, and the internet is just ridiculous in the scope and the breadth of what it does. And I think Internet of Things is going to go like that too. You know, we have different ideas of what we can use it for, but there are new things all the time, it seems. Because there's so much of it, it can't be people. It's got to be processed autonomously. And I think that's going to be one of the real growth areas, and AI and all of those sort of buzzwords actually will become pretty real.
But I think it'll be interesting to look at, when you've got so much data, having a computer look for like patterns in the data. And you could do that all. I think people are a bit worried about, I don't want all this data held by us because of like things that have happened in the past, you know? If you can just make the data anonymous and just look for patterns, then you can apply what you know from the patterns into real life.
I think the other aspect is, I mean, I completely agree that pattern identification and seeing trends and so on is very valuable. Personal data, though, is tremendously valuable, and the largest internet spin-out kind of companies are those that mine data and it's personal data, and they make billions, probably billions per minute, I don't know. But, it's just absurd the money that these guys make. And that personalization is a critical part, definitely.
So just to take a step back then on the Internet of Things and how it's emerged over the years, do you see 5G having a big impact on the growth of that industry?
I don't think in and of itself it's going to cause an explosion, but I think we need that infrastructure in place to start realizing some potential in Internet of Things. I think it's more putting the roads down and then watching the factories build up around the roads, I think it'll speed up over time, but I still think I personally think we're on the surface still,
I think one of the things it will do is help I like this word ubiquity with electronics, but I think one of the key things of Internet of Things and the future of it is getting electronics everywhere. And so the numbers of devices and the amounts of data really will get ludicrously large. 5G and that type of technology that allows very close sort of communication, very tight networks, really high-speed data, those sort of things really will help to speed the propagation of these devices around, and we will get to the hundreds of billions of devices.
Which feeds on quite nicely to my next question. And I have to read this because I can't remember it. The International Data Corporation estimates there'll be 41.6 billion connected IoT devices by 2025. So how do you see, IoT enhancing both businesses that you work in?
Pest control is very analog at the minute, let's put it that way. So there's a lot of manual checking. For example, I was on a food production site. We've got a lot more monitoring points down there, and we'll have to show it to the auditors that we're checking the points at regular intervals. So we'll open a box, we'll get a pen, and we'll put the date on a sticker, close the box, and that is proof that we've checked that box, okay? I was on a site the other day, and it took us 3 hours on the site purely writing the date on a sticker, taking the sticker off and putting a fresh sticker in the box. The way I'd like to go in what we're working on together is to have monitoring points that are essentially automatic, and the monitoring every minute of every day. We as pest controllers can then focus on actually doing pest control in a more targeted way. But so much of our time is actually taken up doing that you wouldn't believe.
I mean, our function as CPI is to support other businesses to do things really. So and very much our focus is on IoT type of devices. The type of things that we make are really electronics that is built in non-conventional ways. This type of thing. So this is a smart label that can log data. It can do it over several months. It can measure temperature, and the whole thing is less than a millimeter thick, sort of thing. We can make things that bend, that will conform and fit into, or we can make very large area devices. So the type of thing that we're talking about with Andrew is some sensors that essentially cover pretty much a whole floor or a whole warehouse. The Internet of Things links into that because many of the devices that we create are data sources. Many of them are just ways of saying something's happened or here's a measurement. So it is tremendously valuable to what we're doing at the moment. The Internet of Things will become it's very central to what we're doing, certainly.
So has the Internet of Things enhanced your business already? Has it opened up doors you didn't realise were there or wouldn't have been there without this solution that we're working on?
I'd say at the minute I'm on the ground floor. So I can see the potential and I know the potential. It's a unique selling point that we can use, but not just a unique selling point like a gimmick, something that's actually going to help the customer, and it's going to help us run more efficiently. So I can't wait to see, time will tell. The industry is already moving this way. There's already infrared monitoring going on, or traps where a trap shuts, it sends a signal, a mouse or a rat's been caught here. So the industry is already going this way. I want to get on board now because as far as I'm concerned, if I don't have it, we're not going to be up there.
We certainly see lots of inquiries in this area from our clients, and there are companies who have implemented IoT activities and a wide range of different things, and they are real and they're active now. 4 or 5 years ago, I was at a IoT conference, and there was a keynote. He said, "It's okay, guys. We've reached the peak of the hype. We're now on to the real thing, you know." and he had this hype curve as he plotted it. And I think that's true. I think we're past the hype bit in IoT, because there's been lots of that. But now we really are about implementation, and people are doing all sorts of clever stuff with gathering data and getting knowledge and understanding from it. We also learn a lot from companies. We find that companies come along to us and suggest ideas and ways of using technologies that we haven't seen before. And it really is quite fun when somebody says, "Oh, we could use that to do this." You think, "Wow, that's the killer app type thing, that you sometimes get." That's really impressive.
So Sapir, Greenway and the CPI have been working collaboratively to help Andrew's company embrace IoT technologies and solutions. Could you tell us a bit more about the CPI's role in this project and how printed circuit boards are going to improve, the proof of concept that Sapir created? Do you talk us through that?
And so the idea of putting sensors all over a warehouse floor is not inconceivable with the type of technologies we have. So we print electronics onto flexible substrates is the most common thing that we do. So this type of thing, which is this is a smart label similar to the one I showed you there, but this is a piece of very thin plastic film with a circuit printed on it and components attached to it. And we can print this on continuous rolls. So actually we can print hundreds of meters of sensor circuits with all of the necessary components attached to them in a continuous process. And that means we can make sensors that might run a whole length of a warehouse, a floor, for example. And so I think the idea was to try to extend the sensing capability of what you'd already done to ensure that you catch all the rodents and make sure you get them wherever they're running, kind of thing.
The problem we have in pest control at the minute is we're essentially affecting evolution. So you've got all the sites from where the food comes in and is held in shunting warehouses, and it comes all the way down the chain until you get the production facilities. You've got to watch for contamination, so we're no longer using rodenticides like we used to. So your main form of control is traps. And the traps generally have to be in boxes because then it's seen as less of a contamination threat. And not all mice act the same. So some mice will be more inquisitive than others. And in this setup, the inquisitive mice get trapped. But what you're leaving behind is the less inquisitive mice who want to reproduce. And they're passing genetic behavior, shall we say, down through the generations, which are making, in some instances on sites, mouse populations harder to control. There'll be a constant low-level infestation. You're skimming off the top, the braver mice. So we wanted, or certainly I wanted to, and this is why I was so interested to work with you guys, change the way that we monitor. So it's a completely passive monitor. It's on the floor. It runs over the floor. We know it's run over the floor, but it hasn't affected that mouse in any way. The mouse is none the wiser, and he'll go on and do whatever he's going to do. But we know the mouse is there, and that's the important thing, and then we can come in and act.
I mean, this partnership is almost made in heaven, I would suggest. We can write the software, manage the data, and even do the machine learning when you're at that point. And, you're the client, you've got the need, you've got the vision. And Simon's got this amazing ability to print technology and circuitry on wafer thin plastic. I find it quite incredible. Any advice you'd give to other companies that are in your situation? And this is to both of you, this question.
You know your business better than me, but if you think there's an application that'll help give value to the customer and also help you run more efficiently, I'd say proceed, because it's the future. And if you don't get in, a competitor will. And it can't be a gimmick. It can't just be, we've got an Internet of Things thing. Like, it's got to add value to your business and it's got to add value to the customer. But if you can see it being applicable in your line of work, go for it, because you'll have a lot more firepower than your old analog competitors.
Yeah, and that collaboration bit I think is tremendously valuable. I mean, we don't do software. We trivial little bits, but it's great to work with companies like Sapir who've got the real skill set and are able to take the sort of devices that we can make and apply them to the sort of space that in this case rodents. I mean, who would have guessed? I wouldn't have guessed we'd be working in that sort of space. And one of the nice things is the way that we've managed to do this work is through the Sonic program. This is a European funded program where CPI receives funds to support companies in this type of new development work, generally in the field of IoT and also in the field where conventional electronics doesn't quite fit. We're able to provide some funding and our time and resources to help develop these sort of new product ideas. And it's a project that's been running for just around a year now. We've got another couple of years to go with it. And it means we're able to help a lot of companies, largely in the region, probably up to about 50 or so companies, to do these types of projects and understand what these technologies can do for them, which is a great benefit.
I mean, you might have already answered this already, and you might not know the answer to it. But how do you believe advancements in electronics can help businesses like Andrew's?
I think one of the things we often find is that clients obviously don't know necessarily the technologies that are around. And so what's very important, I think, is for companies to come and talk to us with their idea, not with a preconceived idea that whether it's possible or not, or how it would be done, but just to say, look, this is my problem. Where is there any sort of solution? So if you want, for example, to provide some information to your customers through a sticky label, how on earth would you do that? Well, in fact, you can easily. I mean, that washing up liquid bottle there is a smart label. It's printed on paper. It's a bit of electronics on the back of that. But probably, unless you're aware of the technologies, you wouldn't really think that could be done. So very important that clients just come along and chat to us. We're always open to have initial discussions, understand where we can help. And flexible electronics is just one small technology that we do and we help people to understand. As I say, we also do things like embedding of electronics into bits of plastic. So injection molding and thermoforming of electronic circuits is quite possible too, not just these flexible ones. So yeah, I think it's very important to come along and have a chat, and then we can really see if we can help.
I think that is the essence of a technology company, isn't it? You're there to listen and then direct and then collaborate, because we don't do everything, but we listen and then we can advise on the application, similar to how we worked with you.
This is something I always wanted to do. The funding's a massive bonus for obvious reasons, but this is a way I always wanted to, work with me. But I had no idea that CPI existed as an organisation. The solutions that product development people are coming up with seem in themselves analog and basic compared to the potential with what you guys do,
But again, it's back to that collaboration thing. It was through a university project, so we're providing consultancy to somebody who was, funny enough, doing an IoT exercise, but they'd been to the CPI first.
CPI has been around 15 years, and over that time, we've received government funding. We get government funding. We also do commercial work as well, but we've built up a superb equipment base, and it's very impressive the type of equipment we have available that people can access for a day rate, which is a great resource for industry to access. Means you don't have to invest $1.5 million to see whether something works, and that's the whole objective, really.
So moving on then, what do you think are the main advantages of IoT? We touched on it earlier on about data and machine learning, but is that the ultimate benefit of IoT devices, or is there more to it than that?
So a lot of times at the minute you've got your routine pest control, and you'll go in once every 6 or 7 weeks and you'll check the boxes, you'll look around the site. What happens if the very next day you walk off that site, you're not due back for another 6 or 7 weeks, and a rodent enters the building? Like, you're not going to know for 6 or 7 weeks. You've still done your routine checks. Yeah. But then you'll come back 6 or 7 weeks, there's been activity, but is it current? Did it happen in the past? Is it ongoing? Monitors, you can see if the activity is continuing all the time. You can see exactly when it happens. So you give a better level of protection to the customer. But then from an operational point of view, if I have got technicians on the ground who aren't doing that manual box checking, they're going to save time. I can give the customer 24/7 monitoring. I can back off on the amount of routine visits we do on a site. So I can make my technicians more valuable to me. They could handle more clients individually, but they'd still give a better level of service, because as soon as a rodent came on any one of those sites, they'd be like, right, we'll book in a weekly visits now, or whatever you needed, and we'll pulse that site and we'll get on top of it, and then we'll back off again. So both for myself operationally and for the customer, it's just win-win.
you kind of hope that there's also some good societal benefits and people benefits. Maybe getting people connected together more easily, as has happened already with technologies. I mean, my mum lives in Bristol. She's 89 and doesn't really know how to use technology at all. But we've got a little voice-activated video phone, and it's wonderful. She can simply say, "Call Simon," and it does. And so that sort of technology advantage and that communication, even in this sort of horrible environment where we can't communicate and speak and visit each other, it's a superb advantage of technology. I think things like 5G that you mentioned earlier, they're going to provide us with those benefits, and hopefully there are good societal outcomes as well as profit for companies, because I think that's the more important thing than the former.
So final thoughts then, where will IoT, the Internet of Things, go, do we think? What's next?
I really don't know. I think you'll have a lot of snazzy tech that people can use, a lot of like creature comfort gimmicks. I think like the real potential is in the data. We're not there yet, I think we won't know what it's useful for until we've got it and we start looking through it. I say like the more data, the better, really. As long as it's anonymous. I think it's exciting, really exciting. I think it's just going to help society function, essentially. I see it as a pest control with no knowledge on how society functions, but
who does understand how society functions?
I just think it'll make systems a lot more effective and fluid and efficient. I think the sky's the limit. I honestly do.
I think it will provide another level of connectivity between people and businesses that we don't really envisage. Going back again to the earlier discussion on the internet, it did that. And we didn't really appreciate what was happening, and the connectivity we have now, the fact that you can find out where people are instantaneously and so on. I think it's going to pervade our lives more and more. Well, you can only hope that it's done to the benefit of people rather than just companies.
So a regular feature on our ExperTEES sessions, what was your first technical gadget?
A Tamagotchi.
Wow.
Remember Tamagotchis? I got it from the Barra in the Metro Centre, and it was a little kitten one.
I think you can still get them, can't you? I think they made a reappearance.
There we go.
Good.
Super excited about that as well.
You can tell. Thanks, Andrew. Simon, what was your first technical gadget?
My first technical gadget was actually a calculator. Oh. Really exciting,
Casio.
Because back in the day, we didn't have computers. I also, my first real techie gadget was a little LED dice that I made, electronic dice. Press a button and it will give me a number. That was exciting, yeah.
What's your most used app on your phone?
It's either WhatsApp or Kindle. I read all the time on my phone. It's a superb app, I think. A great way to keep up on books. So yeah, it's one of those two.
Andrew?
Spotify, but it's recently been usurped by BBC Sounds, and I'm just slowly working my way down, just having them one after the other. It's fantastic. Really enjoying it.
So next question then. So if you could bring back any technical gadget that's fallen by the wayside over the years, if you can think of one, what would it be?
A little wind-on camera, because they were just better. Like a photo had more value. You'd take your photos, you don't know how they were going to come out, you might even have a couple of cameras, and then you go to Boots or whatever, get them printed off, and then you could get around with your family or people you went on holiday with and sit around, look at the photos, share them around. And I just think it was better. Like, there wouldn't be good photos, but like they were just better,
Same question to you, Simon. If there was a gadget you could bring back, what would it be and why?
I think it would be the Sinclair digital watch, because I couldn't afford one at the time and I loved one. So it was actually a kit, you had to make it, but I'd love to have had one of those. It was pretty much the first digital watch. It was a black thing, quite a large square, and it just had red LEDs in it. Really nice design, actually, really elegant. That would be fun. Quite like one of those. Probably can buy them now, to be honest. I bet you can.
Probably.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, what has been the greatest digital invention to date?
I'd say the internet, just because it just permeates so many parts of our life now, and a lot of the tech that we use would be redundant without the internet. The age I am, I remember almost growing up with the internet. Like, I remember having 56k and then having to like be on the internet when someone's not using the phone. When I was like, I don't know, 10 or something, and then like just like coming up through my life, just always with the internet, you know. And I just can't think of the world now without the internet, for better or worse. It's there, you know.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Good answer.
It is, isn't it? I mean, I kind of agree. I think I would almost go back one stage before that, though, and say the transistor, although it's not really a digital device, but it's the enabling technology for all of modern electronics and the internet and computers. So the monolithic transistor is the fundamental device that has enabled all this to happen.
Excellent. So how would you explain the internet to an alien if you had to? God help us if we ever get to that point.
Kind of think you wouldn't have to, because they would probably understand, you know, what that sort of thing's about.
Well, it depends who's got whose planet, I suppose.
Yeah, if they're here, for sure. They really probably have something quite similar, I would guess. If I was forced, I would say it's just a way of connecting data and connecting things up. That's probably a rubbish description. But,
Well, I think it's a really. I was going to say exactly the same thing because it's a really good description. Instant communication.
It's fundamentally, it's about connectivity, isn't it?
Yeah.
URLs are that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Right, so thank you very much, Andrew and Simon, for joining us on this ExperTEES session. It's been really valuable and really enjoyable, and hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much so. Thanks very much for organising it.
It's brilliant to sit in a room with people a lot smarter than me.
Shucks. So there we have it. That is the end of our IoT ExperTEES session. I'd like to thank Andrew from Greenway and Simon from CPI for joining us for this really fantastic session. If you have an idea about IoT, but you don't know where to go, please feel free, reach out and speak to us. Sapir have been doing this for many years. We've been at the Pallion Test, Traceco, Chromac, to name but a few. We've got excellent connections with the CPI to help you get to where you need to get to. So please feel free to reach out, even if it's just an idea at this stage.